Welcome to the Legendarium Green Team, everybody. This episode, we're going to be discussing Robin Hobb's Mad Ship. Thank you to Craig and company for letting us do this. And to start, I want to say if you like this episode or like all our episodes, go to the Discord and hang out with all of us and rant and argue and have good vibes because it's an awesome place. I am I am your host Yetti Beats, and with me today is Kyptan
Hello.
and Sean, or user Black Diamond.
Hello.
So yeah, Mad Ship, we did it. We're recording at what feels like 6 months after we last talked, but I,
Almost is.
I think we're going to get right back into it because Robin Hobb, quite frankly, is always on my mind, as is her characters. And to start with, let's just do a non-spoiler free section, just our overall thoughts, and in particular, let's start with Kyptan. Kyptan, what did you think of Mad Ship compared to the first book and everything else she's written, Farseer?
I really liked it, although it's hard for me to think of it as one book because I had to stop about a third of the way through and uh, and record the first ship, sorry, and record Liveship Traders, the first episode, and then come back to this book. And so I feel like this is easily 2 books worth of material.
That's fair. I I've also heard like people say that this series is kind of just like one big story in 3 books, which I think a lot of like people say at Lord of the Rings, and I've said it about First Law, but they all kind of, especially when you finish, I think it all kind of meshes into like genuinely the live ship series. But hopefully, nothing kind of melded too much into the first and second book for you.
They definitely have endings that work, but you could have probably uh, changed where the first book ended, like a bit into the middle of Mad Ship, or a bit back from where it actually did end. Like, there's a lot of points in these books where there's cliffhangers, and that would be appropriate places to end a book, or at least that work as well as the ones that ended up being the ones.
It's funny you say that because so I was trying to look on Reddit, like the fantasy subreddit and Hob, to see people's reactions about this, and a lot of people said they thought this book ended abruptly, and you could kind of maybe argue that about the first book too.
Yeah.
But well, what about you, Sean? What do you think of Mad Ship?
Well, I loved it a lot, as I have with the entirety of this trilogy. Um, the books, in my mind, uh, are divided more so by my favorite character within each entry
Hmm.
and the thematic differences between the 3 entries. Um, that doesn't make it necessarily easier for me to know plot-wise where each start, but yeah, that's how I think of them more so. And I'm excited to talk about Matchup, yeah, because I liked it a lot.
Okay. I can see that, I guess.
hmm
Yeah,
We'll get into why.
I,
We'll get into it.
We'll get into there, and then we'll have a talk about what everybody's favorite character was in book 1, and then what it changed to in book 2, if it changed.
hmm
That'll be fun. That would be fun.
oh, definitely. For me, Mad Ship is my favorite book of the trilogy. I kind of think it's its apex. And maybe you could argue the third book, but I think in the first book there's so many characters introduced. You have to kind of get a feel for all of them, which I do think she does really well. I think you kind of know who Malta is when right when you read her. You're like, okay, this is who she is. And the second book, we're kind of building off what we know of the characters and what they're going through and their struggles and the situations they're put in, and then kind of there's more of, I guess, characters interacting with each other, whether it's Wintro and Kenneth's dynamic now, or Malta and Rain, where now these things that were kind of in these characters that were inching toward each other at the end of the first book are now clashing and going back and forth. And I really think, particularly, I'm going to speak on it later, but with Paragon, who comes, you know, meets up with him and how his journey interacts with other characters. I think it really hits a high point with this series, and it can, when you finish this book, you you kind of feel that this story could go anywhere. I remember finishing this for the first time, and I'm like, I don't know how this is going to end. I literally have no idea. I had it with Paragon and Althea and Brashen. I had a feeling I know where they were going to go. I don't know what was going to happen when they get there. Definitely same of how it ends with Malta, Tintaglia. Not spoilers, but I'm not spoiling anything. But I don't
I
know
think we're
where
in
that was
spoiler
going.
mode if you're talking about all these characters and specifics.
Okay, well, I didn't say what happened to him, but I'm just saying I felt like this after the end of this book, it could go anywhere, and I thought that was really exciting, and yeah, that's why I liked it so much. So if you gave it a star rating, uh, you can do 0.5 if you want. Where would you guys go in a star rating?
You
Uh,
first. I'm gonna look what I gave it, because I can do that.
4.5. 4.5
Oh,
is a nice solid story.
yeah, it's impressive. I feel like that's as high as we're going to get for you out of Hobb. Maybe not. I don't know.
I think it might be.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, it was 4.5 for me too.
okay.
I mean, I rated it 5, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure it was technically 4.5.
Yeah, I do that too. I'll write in the comments what I actually gave it. But yeah, I was
I'm pretty
five.
stingy with my 5 stars.
Yeah.
Me too, and that's why I am comfortable to say I did give it a 5 star.
Ooh.
Again, it's one of my favorite Hobb books. I think it's one of the best ones she's written. But I also think this trilogy is one of the best ones she's written. So, all right, let's get into spoilers. Let's do it. Let's get down and dirty. I wanted to start off this way. Just I thought it'd be interesting. So, like when you think of Matchup, and the first scene that pops to your head, because I have a very distinct one. What for you, Kip? I'll start with you. What was the first scene that sticks out to you that when you finish this book?
So I have a theory,
Ooh.
and it's that Madship is not meant to be definitively Paragon.
Oh, I love it. I love that you brought this up because I wanted to talk about it.
Uh, and what I think of Madship is the scene with Kennet on the bow of the Vivacia talking to her and convincing her slowly but surely. And she knows it's happening, but she's still a child and she's still new at all of this. And he's convincing her to become a pirate. And you know what? He's
Hmm.
got some pretty good arguments.
I was on his side.
I was on his side too. He's going against slavers. This is not even morally gray.
That's the beauty of Kenneth. It's for sure the character of Kenneth, not the.
Yeah.
Um, I thought this exactly too. When I first read it, I said, "Mad ship." You're led into believing, oh, this is Paragon's book from everything we read in the first book. And as you read more and more of Mad Ship, as you say, it's not just Paragon. I think it definitely, obviously, alludes to his, nefarious myth of him being a mad ship, and everyone sees him as they come into the docks and everything like that.
Yep.
But I think Hobb really meant Vivacia, and her going. I you could argue mad. Just some of the what's go. I mean, there's blood being shed on her docks, even though pirates clean it up and take good care of the ship. But just her, like Kip said before we recorded, she really lets her hair down in this book, and I think you could see her going down a dangerous path. I know we all agree with
Oh.
Kenneth and that
Oh
he's,
yeah.
but it's still not an ideal way for a live ship to live as a pirate ship. So I think you could definitely see her going off the rails in the third book. I don't know
There
about you,
is
Phil.
there's a fire that is kindling in her eyes and in her soul.
Hmm.
Though it's not clear if she actually has a soul. We'll see.
I think that part of the reason why I was on Kenneth's side so much is just like the way he painted the options were like you can ship cargo for the rest of your life, or you can actually like live your life to the fullest, have all this excitement. Um, one could argue that the safer idea is better, but I mean, in the end, based on how I think people should live their lives, like I tend to agree with Kenneth, just because I think having a life that's more full as opposed to one that's shipping cargo is one that's more worth living. So I do support her decision, even though she was kind of manipulated into it.
The thing that really gets to me about that scene when he's convincing her is that he's so good at convincing people and at knowing what's in their heads and how to use that to his advantage most of the time. But occasionally, he will be so far off base because he just
Yeah.
doesn't understand what normal people are like. Not instinctually, not intuitively. He's learned it all uh, academically and through trial and error and watching people's reactions to the things that he says. But sometimes he is just so far off.
If anyone has any malicious intent toward him, he'll sniff that out right away.
But
But any
also, he
any
smells it when it's
compassion,
not
no.
there.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. That's all he smells.
Sorkor. It always comes up with Sorkor.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's such a good point, and I kind of wanted to bring this up last or the next episode, but I want to talk about it now. So Kenneth, so Kyle, I feel like he has good motivations, for all he does, but those around him always end up suffering. In theory, he has good motivation, other than maybe slavery. But even slavery is to get his motivation is to get them out of debt. It's a terrible decision. Whereas like Kenneth stops it. He's the inverse. He his motives are totally selfish. Totally, it's all for bettering him. But and most of the time, it's cruel what he does. But those affected usually are bettered. You could argue and it's kind of just this weird parallel between the two. If you see Kenneth as a villain, but I would say two villains where it's just a unique parallel between both of them. I think you can make so many comps between Kenneth and Kyle and just their
Yeah.
style. But as you say, Kenneth is just so he can coerce everyone in it, but it's always for selfish means. But the way you see it through other characters' eyes, they can't help but love and adore him, and it's as a reader, it's incredible. I'm always in awe of Hobb how she writes him, Kenneth. And I feel like as you guys
Yeah.
feel the same way, and everyone does.
The
So
charming sociopath. I love it.
Yeah.
exactly.
The charming do-gooder sociopath. Because he is doing good. He just isn't good.
Yeah. It's
Yes, yeah,
fascinating
definitely. I
and
mean, again,
entertaining.
people are better. People are bettered from him. Like the town that
Yep.
pirate town. That town is better for him. He does not care at all for them, because we know his internal thoughts, and we know he does not care about anyone there. But he thinks this would better his goals. But it does. But doesn't matter if they're better for it. You know.
And then when you look real deep into his internal motivations, a lot of it is to prevent himself from being vulnerable like he was when he was a child.
Hmm.
And
Exactly.
that's also not a bad motivation, not a bad goal. Maybe you can achieve that without being Pirate King, but he doesn't know any other path. And
Hmm.
I think Igrot made that pretty you know, closed off a lot of opportunities for him.
Oh yeah.
That yeah. We're going to be talking about that a ton in the next
I'm
book. But
I'm
the
sure we
feeling of
will.
the feeling of characters who don't want to be vulnerable anymore because of something that happened to them or weak or vulnerable permeates throughout this whole book. There's another character that we
Oh
meet in
yeah.
the series, this book, new characters, same thing, and their actions in the net going forward. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing Ken going through.
I mean, it's what
Um,
Paragon's going through.
uh,
Hmm.
exactly same with Paragon. Yeah, I can't wait for that. Anyway, Sean, what about you?
I mean, I don't want to take yours because obviously mine would be the same.
Oh, you can.
No, it's okay. I don't want to take the wind out of your sail. But instead, um, I think that so when I think about Madship, the book, I don't necessarily think about Paragon. I think it's aptly named because of Paragon and Vivacia going through their development. But I think one could make a good argument for this being Malta's book instead, or is a book that mostly revolves around her. Um, so like
Wait,
when I think of Madship, I think about her more so.
wait, is the mad ship Malta and Rain?
Yes, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Um, so yeah, anything with Malta really is what my mind comes to, and there's no, I can't really think of a big moment off the top of my head, but Malta stuff in general is my answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even have to say a moment. Her arc. I mean, everyone preaches it. We told this to Kip in the first book. We said, hey,
Yeah.
just wait. You're gonna
I
see
got a
it
little
happen.
I got
Everyone.
a little annoyed at people preaching it to me, honestly.
So did I.
Yeah,
Listen, I read every comment, and everyone was like, "Oh, she's the best." I'm like, "There's no way." I was like, "There's just no way that she can turn it around." And you know, I thought it was natural. I think for me, there was a moment where her and Ronica kind of clicked when she was going to that ball, and they didn't have an escort for her, and Devad Restart was like, "Well, I'll go. She has to have. You can't go by herself." And Ronica and she or Malta said, "No, we're gonna go. I'm gonna go alone to show that the solidarity of our family, because no one's gonna help us. No one wants to go look for my father, so I'm going out on my own." And Ronica kind of backed her up on that, and they kind of shared like a look of respect between each other.
Yeah.
And that always, I remember that. I don't know if it was the exact turning point, but I think that's when I was just like, oh yeah, this is just a totally different girl from who we met uh, in the first book. So definitely, I think this is definitely her book. I think you're 100% spot on. I think she owns owns this book uh, for the
Yeah,
most part.
Malta is my character of book 2, for sure.
same. Yeah. And we have the same character of book one, Wintro.
Winter Wintrow's lovely and nice. And then he kind of becomes a little bit of a lapdog in this one. And,
Oh yeah, it's such a thing. It's such a
Poor
thing.
guy.
and I'm not against like a puppy, but it's not going to hold my interest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with Malta, I feel like Rain. I just thought their dynamic really added to the story. First of all, it opens up the Rain Wilds a ton. Just seeing their family life, but just either the back and forth with the Dream Box, which was I thought was really cool. Was that in
Real
this
quick,
book?
why did
Is that
that
the
was
first book?
last book?
Wow. So you know me.
Didn't it
For
like get
the first
refreshed
book.
this book though?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. They
All
had
right.
like a meeting.
They
Okay.
had a second shared dream in which
Okay.
Malta
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
very disappointed in Rain's inability to help her.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
Why did Hobb have to name a character Rain from the Rain Wilds? It's the same word, just different spelling. Like, why?
Well,
I don't know. Maybe he's about to be the Rainwild King.
yeah.
Maybe
Fantasy spelling and
his
namings. I'm not.
his reign will come.
Rain's reign over the Rainwilds will come. Rain's Rainwild reign.
It's ridiculous.
Yes. I. Yeah. So with her, she also with the stuff with the satrap coming and how she handles him. I mean, you forget like the bulk of the end of this book was her in the Rain Wilds with Tintaglia. There's another wrench thrown into the story with a character, like another full formed character that we have to get used to, and
Yep.
which I love, but it's just another dynamic for her. So yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm all aboard Malta, all things. So for for my scene, that stuck out to me. As you guys know, pretty much everything with Brashen and Althea trying to rejuvenate and get Paragon ready to sail again. That I'm kind of cheating, but that goes from them bringing it up to him. If you remember that first scene where
Yep.
he starts kind of it's kind of like talking to a child that could blow at any second, and it was so interesting seeing them how to kind of walk around the subject and then bring it up to him, and him throwing a fit with his trader family. What's their name? The Lud. I was going to say Ludwigs, but I know
Ludlux.
that's not
Ooh,
Ludlocks. I thought it was. I was deeply impacted when they kind of just told him off and just said, "You're not part of this family" in front of everyone. I thought that was heartbreaking.
I didn't have a lot of respect for the Ludlux to start with, given that they were secretly considering selling Paragon in the first place. But
Yeah,
meeting them for the first time in the fullness of their rage and grief, it didn't improve my opinion of them.
it felt like decades of, as you said, grief just thrown right at him, and
Yep.
at a very vulnerable time for him when things are just getting tossed at him. He's obviously scared, and he's throwing a fit. So that section into when they're building him and he's kind of not talking to them, he's passive aggressive, and I really enjoyed the way that Brashen felt he had to deal with Paragon, and how Amber and Althea thought that was too harsh, and how he kind of
Yep.
told them like, listen, we need to deal with this now, because if he acts like this when we're out in the open seas, we're never going to come back. He said we need to show. He needs to know I'm the captain, and we're going to do this. And I thought it was really moving where he said, I'm not doing it to be, you know, to discipline him or obviously mean to him. He said, I'm trying to bring him up to his what he's capable of, his standards. And I thought that was kind of moving. And obviously, Brashen or Paragon realizes that at the end of that one chapter, which is my favorite moment ever in Hobb. But so everything that Amber, her almost unconditional love towards Paragon, which I think can't be overstated, where she's from refusing to have him sold and carving for him, or
See,
saying she
I
will.
would I would not call it unconditional love for Paragon. I would just call it Amber's unconditional love, period.
Hmm. I
Um,
think that I don't even know if I consider it love. Maybe it gets to that point, but I think her main motivation is like what she wants out of him, or what she wants like out of why she's what she wants out of her entire plan, essentially.
I think she sees her life as trying to fight for those who maybe can't fight for themselves and to help them in whatever ways that she can. And just a general respect for, in another world, I would call this human rights, but I don't know what to call it in Realm of the Elderlings. But basically, fighting for autonomy and freedom. Mm.
yeah,
I love that for
I
so many
think you're both.
reasons.
I think you're both right on both accounts. It's just not Brashen and Althea, they have their motives to get Paragon up and going. And I'm sure Amber does to an extent, but from the first moment, I think it was just wanting him to live up to a potential. And I don't think everyone would just, Brashen wouldn't just get him up and moving just because. He's
Nope.
doing it because he wants to be the captain of Paragon, and and Althea wants to save Vivacia. So where Amber comes in, who's just as dedicated, if not more, to get him back, get him a life again. I thought all of that was moving. I really thought that's where the book or the whole series really shifted to all time great for me. But yeah, that was, and there was dynamics between Brashen and Althea about who she kind of resented that he wants to be the captain, and I thought their relationship took I wouldn't say a turn, but I think it picked up a
It
little
No,
bit
it
more.
took a turn. It took a turn.
it was mended a bit, at least there. And that's part of the reason why I love that scene so much because like there's so many different moving parts to it, and they're all great. Like there's the general triumph surrounding finally getting him off the shore into the water, like for multiple characters.
Mhm.
And I think triumph is a feeling that you don't get very often in books. Um, there's Paragon coming around to his feeling of self-worth, which is great. Um, Part of Brashton's character arc is him needing to rise to his potential that we know he has, but he's held back by like one the drugs and him his relationship with Althea. So him coming out of his potential is also great. Then his relationship with Althea was mended. So there's so many different moving parts there that were so good for so many characters.
Yeah, you nailed it. I know me and Sean have touched on this before. So the parallels between Brashen and Paragon, I mean, their arcs, they're both kicked out of their families. You know, they both kind of self sabotage themselves over and over again, and they both don't know their self
Yeah.
worth, and they both think so little of themselves that the triumph that you're speaking of is for both of them, and that's
Hmm.
why it, I think that's why Brashen was secretly so invested in Paragon because it's connected to himself. I mean, this is riding on his own. Because if he can't get this going, I think Brashen knows his life is just going to go the wrong way fast.
Hmm.
As of like now, Brashen still has some hopes and dreams.
Yeah,
He almost gave them up for a little bit when he was semi-pirate.
In that like
But
city town, right?
yeah, when he was basically functioning as a fence for stolen goods for pirates. But
Right.
uh, Brashen thinks that maybe, just maybe, he can help Althea right now. And
Hmm.
like also the Vestrit family, for which he feels a great debt,
Yeah.
thanks to
sure.
Ephron. And if this doesn't go well, I think Brashen's going to give up. I I think he would either find some Sindin and never let it go and go full pirate, or I don't know. I could see him committing suicide.
Oh wow.
Hmm.
Well, yeah,
Almost.
could be.
If things go really badly, I could see him committing suicide.
I could see that, not in the literal sense, but I could see him like joining some ridiculous ship like with a high death rate and just like doing something like that. But yeah, I agree.
He's got that little stubborn streak of honor in him, and I think
Hmm.
it could drive him to do some really destructive acts if he ended up getting Althea killed or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would ever abandon Althea though, and him dying would
Well, if she was
count.
dead,
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. So essentially, yes, I agree, and I feel like this was both of their last chances. I feel like this for Paragon and Brashen, they're like, I think they secretly both knew this was their last chance to do something with their life.
yep.
Definitely for Paragon and Brashen. I think he just knew if this Althea probably would have went some other way and got herself killed trying to get Vivacia, and like you said, he would go down a dark hole. So this was a lot riding on this, and that's where that moment of triumph, at the end of the book where they're out and sailing. And I don't know the whole quote, but Althea says something like, "This is great, but once I get Vivacia back, you better watch yourself, Brashen." And there's kind of like a there's like a silence, and then eventually, Paragon finally speaks for the first time as like an adult, and he who believes in himself and says, "You haven't seen anything from Trell and I yet, Althea." And it's like that's how the chapter ends, and you're like, when people say Hobb is depressing, I get it. There's definitely a lot of bad things, but moments like these, they're in there where there's glimmers of hope, and
Yeah, you gotta
characters
have
do
hope
turn a
so you can
corner.
get it dashed.
Again, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not saying that everything goes perfectly in Brashen and Paragon's life, but those moments of hope, I think they're left out in talks of Hobb. I don't think that stuff is ever brought up, and it's same with there's stuff, just small moments like that. I think make a fantasy book when you have to put it down and you're like, yes, like, or else it'd all be glum and it'd all
And
be like, what,
and you know what? I could say the same thing about Kennet and him doing good deeds.
yeah, yeah, but with Kenneth, yeah, with good deeds. Those are good things, but I feel like in his head, you always know that it's selfish. It's like that's not. There's never a glimmer of like. Has there been a glimmer in this book of him, a humanity where he actually did it because he cares about someone? Maybe with Wintro. Maybe.
I
Other than
I
that,
I think I think the bond with Vivacia has changed him a little bit at least.
see, I
Yeah.
don't.
I,
I
I
still
think I
see.
think little
Yeah.
bits of Wintro and Vivacia have wormed their way into his personality, and we'll see if he accepts that or rejects it.
Even this book, I've always felt that it was all coercion with Vivacia. I felt like it was an ego thing, and I felt like he was nice to her, and he didn't. I agree. I think he cared what happened to her, but only because she's his live ship ultimately.
I think there's instances in this book where he will do something and then be confused about why he did it. He just does something instinctively and then is like,
Yeah.
wait, why would I do that? And I think that is evidence for when he was sick and they had to do that like deep mind melt in order to save him. I think that's
Hmm.
evidence for Kenneth was affected. Kennit was changed and little bits of Vivacia and Wintro seeped into him.
That's a good
Yeah.
that's a good segue. So let's talk let's talk about Wintrow a little bit, and I'll go wherever you guys want to go. If you want to talk about the scene where he had to take off Kenneth's leg, which I thought was almost like heart pounding. Even though you assume Kenneth's going to survive, I thought it was gruesome. I thought, you know, it was a big moment for Wintrow having to go through
I mean,
that.
he did die.
Yeah, he
Didn't he
did
die?
die.
I guess stay dead. Sorry, which again I guess points to, does it point to Wintrow's healing ability? Does he have, do the priests have powers? I don't
They absolutely have powers.
know.
They absolutely have powers.
um, but I thought that was a huge moment between their relationship. I actually, what I want to talk about. So, can we talk about Wintrow and Kyle disappearing? Did you guys have thoughts about? So, Kenneth essentially takes Kyle to an island where we meet Kenneth's tongueless mother, and
Yep.
essentially just locks him away in a basement.
Good
And
Mhm.
riddance.
he does it. Uh, yeah, I listen. I hate Kyle as much as anyone, but he doesn't. He just tells Wintrow he's gone, and he doesn't tell. He says I didn't kill him, but he's out of the way,
Yep. He's not
and
dead.
that's what he says. But as Wintrow, I really enjoyed his inner monologue, kind of dealing with that. So he's just going to take the word of this guy that he definitely has a bond to now, but he also guiltily likes. This is what he wanted. He wanted his father out of the way. I thought it was kind of powerful where he was going back and forth. This poor, again, this is a young boy who was just ripped from the priesthood, taken on a slave ship, and now on a pirate ship. And now his father, who definitely treated him poorly, was ripped away and just told that he disappeared. Maybe dead, but said he wasn't. The pirate king says he's not dead. I thought that was a lot.
I thought it was very
Yeah.
Kennit. But it was actually almost too nice for Kennit.
Yeah, I think without that bond with Wintrow, uh, Kyle just would have been killed.
Oh yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Like without the healing.
Kennit saw that as
Although,
a huge like repayment of a bond of like interest.
mhm. I think both of these scenes, the island scene and the healing scene, conveniently we just talked about both of them. But I like how we get some backstory for Kenneth with both of those scenes. We like see with some of his trauma as he's being force healed, and then we like learn about how his home was attacked by Egret during the island scene. And then I appreciated the Kenneth backstory because really just getting deeper into his mind is
Yep.
needed and very interesting.
Kennit's not an idiot, and I think that might be where he plans to retire.
Well,
Yeah,
with his mom, he
could
doesn't
be.
seem like he has much love for his mother. Finds her a bit
I
annoying.
think I think he's hoping that she'll die by the time he has to retire.
Right. So,
Just natural causes, bye, and then he'll have this whole setup, and then look, everything's already done.
Oh, I love when they're on their way back from the island and he's like on the boat with Sa Adar and he's like
oh my god.
shoving him off the boat
Yeah,
essentially. It was so funny.
Again, that was a
He has
great
like one
sequence.
leg.
That was
great
fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean,
sequence.
that's, yeah,
Great
Saadat.
sequence.
I could talk at length about that guy, but yeah, just essentially pushing the dead weight off. And like you said, he's not an idiot. He knew this guy is going to be a problem. He knew it, and he gave him a chance to stay there. He was in a world that's fair. He said, "Hey, stay with them."
I'm
You know,
Yep. And he also gave Saadar the chance to overpower him and make it back to the ship without Kennit.
right?
And
Yeah.
that was like Kennit like testing himself as well, saying even without my leg, can I still take on this priest?
Hmm.
And still outmaneuver and outthink and physically push this guy out of the boat.
He can do a lot with one leg, by the way.
Yeah, turns out he can.
Like there's that whole island scene later that I won't get into now because it's the end of the book, but he can do a lot.
Yeah.
Good for him.
But I liked how it how being able to murder someone reaffirmed his faith in himself.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, like I said, the man's got crazy luck. Don't think that doesn't play a part in it, my friend.
Crazy luck
True.
and logic.
So just real quickly, last thing on that, this whole sequence. So you don't think, and I hate Kyle as much as anyone, you don't think that to keep him locked away in a just basement, dark basement type thing is incredibly cruel, and I think it's overly cruel. I think death would be. It almost reminded me of Fitz in book two, um,
Oh,
of
I mean,
Farseer, where he's tortured and put in a jail cell. And I mean, it's inhumane. It really is when you think
Wintro
about it.
it's
Wintro wants him to
incredibly
live.
cruel.
He's
But
doing what Wintro wants.
But he does
but
but he doesn't know this is what it's doing. He just wants him maybe dropped off at a safe location. He does because again he doesn't know what, what exactly he did
what
with him
is a safe location for Kyle Haven?
at a different island with random people. I don't know. You're right. I get it. I don't. I just listen. I'm not trying to stick up for the slave trading, the guy who's all into slave trading, but I did find it. I mean, it is inhumane, and it's you know. I think it's a
It's better
interesting
than the
thing.
conditions he had the slaves in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. I'd say that's probably the perfect answer to that. All right. Where should we go? Do we want to talk about? So let's talk about what did you guys think? So we met two new characters. Well, one POV character and who she brings along. So we meet the satrap and Cirilla. And so just give me your first takes on Cirilla, more importantly, and what you thought she brought to the story, if she dragged it down at all. And Kip, start with you, buddy.
Huh. Well, she certainly drove home how bad the satrap was. That's for sure. And I prefer getting her point of view over actual Cosgo's point of view.
Definitely.
Uh,
Mhm.
what else?
So I put on her, only thing I
She
put,
seems a little too naive.
yeah, well, so what is her profession? She's just a hand of the satrap that knows everything about one subject, which happens to be Bingtown, right?
Yep.
But she's never been to Bingtown.
A heart companion who has never been to Bingtown but has read a lot of books about it.
Yes. So in a way, definitely naive would probably be the biggest thing. She is.
But she's also naive about the satrap
Mm.
and
To her
and,
downfall.
and about the Chalcid states. And she really seems, I don't know, just a little bit too ivory tower for someone in such a dire situation.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that all plays a part into. I put Cirilla touchy subject. So I mean, I guess I'll put like a warning, a trigger warning for anyone about just graphic bad stuff happening. But there's a scene where the satrap essentially she won't sleep with him, as many of the hearts do sleep with the satrap. She refuses to,
Seems like
and
everybody else.
yeah, literally every other companion does.
Literally every other companion.
And
Hmm.
so she essentially just tells the captain of the Chalcedean ship that he can have her, and it's kind of haunting. Where you just check in on her next time, where she's been raped countless times, and her mindset after that. And I think it fundamentally changes her as a character. I can't totally remember where we leave off with her, but I have very vivid memories of what happens, what how she reacts to things in book three. Um, and again, I think that the vulnerability, as you said, Kip, last time of characters never wanting to feel a certain way again, definitely plays a part with
Yep,
her and her choices going forward. Um, but
for
I thought she
sure.
was a great addition. I don't know about you, Sean, but I at first I kind of I remember reading it was a little dragged down. I was like, oh, I want to spend more time with the people we know. But as we got more involved with her, and as she enters sails over to Bingtown and stuff, I really enjoyed the role she played. What about you?
Uh, it's pretty meh on her. I think she's
Fair.
the worst part of this book and the next book. but that's because but the rest of both books are amazing.
Yeah.
So she had a
E-
lot to live up to. But yeah, I'm
even
not a huge
even
fan
worse
of.
than the serpents.
Yes,
Okay.
Mhm.
yes.
I don't. Maybe this book definitely, but I don't think she's the worst part of the next book. She's incredibly frustrating, to say the least. But I don't think she's the worst part. I think she's much stronger in the third book. But the stuff that goes on there. But I just want to talk about her being introduced. I thought it was kind of a risk to take. We have so many characters and plot lines already, and Hobb kind of just ships her down to us and mixes with
It needed to happen though.
yeah.
Like it would have been weird if the first. I mean, other authors would have done it, but if the first time we saw Costco would have been like at the reception event thing, it would have been like I don't know, just another faceless ruler. But I think the decision to get in on his mindset, on his rule, and just like how he is as a person was an effective one. So I thank the character of Cirilla for that, and that's all I'll give her.
We needed somebody from the satrapy in order to understand the politics,
Yeah, exactly.
and she worked as far as that goes.
Yeah, just like with the Rain Wild, we get Rain similarly.
I hate you.
But funny you brought him up. I just wanted to talk about that. So can we talk about Rain and Malta for a little bit and their family, their Rain's
Yeah,
family? It's funny when I first met him in the first book. He seems very cool, very composed, kind of mysterious, and I thought it was an interesting choice where we see more of him and his family, his brother and his mother. There's a point where he's drunk and having night terrors. Kind of seems almost like a raving lunatic at a certain point because of a voice in his head. And I guess you can talk about Tintaglia too. You know, we find out that there's a dragon in these ships. The logs, the Rainwild logs, who's kind of holed up in
I
there and talks.
mean, did we find that out in this book, or was that last book that we got hints of it?
there's
I
been
would,
lots of hints.
I think it was hints, but I feel like it was definitely confirmed in this book that
For sure,
that's
definitely
what it
confirmed
was.
in this book, yes.
But she definitely plays a bigger part of she's getting into dreams, getting into Malta's dreams, making what dragons do, making bargains with Malta. She's the first person that says, "I can help you realistically with
Oh,
your
yeah.
family," which is very
Yep.
appealing to Malta. And the way the three of them kind of bounce off each other, where Rain totally is horrified at the prospect of Malta talking to her or getting in. There's like a lot of lore with that, where if a dragon gets in your dreams, it can make you go crazy. You know, it's done that to other Rain Wilders.
Yeah.
Um, so
He
I
drowned.
he drowned. That's right. So I like their dynamic. If I had to rank the relationships in this book, they'd probably be the top. I put relationships in here. I said Rain and Malta, Kennett and Vivacia. Weirdly enough, Althea and Brashin. I think as far as the romances go, this one's possibly the healthier, despite the weird age gap.
I'm already on record saying I like the Malta stuff a lot in this book, and I like what she goes through with Rain as well. Um, and the
If
Tintaglia stuff is a good point of conflict. I'll continue this, but you can go for now, Kip.
if I can forget about the age gap bits, Malta Rain is definitely my favorite relationship in this
Mm,
book. Uh, and that's mostly because I hate Althea and every outlook that she has
yeah,
about relationships.
yeah,
She's
same.
like, she knew then, without certainty, that she would never fall in love with a man who asked permission before kissing her. I'm like, Althea, why must you be so problematic?
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
To segue that, sorry, we're bouncing. Let's talk about relationships, but to go into Althea, it was interesting to learn her backstory a little bit with that one ship boy who took her virginity.
Oh, yeah, that was disturbing. Yeah,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean that's probably where it stems from roughly, like some deep-rooted trauma that kind of
like revenge
manifests.
sex. Ugh.
I
Yeah.
honestly, I think that was definitely traumatizing. But even I think more so the reaction that Kefria had towards Althea. I mean, wouldn't let her
Oh,
down and essentially called her a slut over and over again
Yep.
yeah.
for that. And I think she's never. It's I think it's permeated into her relationship with Brashen. You know, the misinformant. Yeah, they're
And she
misinformed
and
thinking
she
she's a slut.
wears she wears a reminder of it every day.
Right. That's yeah. That's she needs to see a therapist with that one. I mean that it's
A
tough.
visible reminder. She's got to keep her belly button covered at all times.
Yeah. Back to the Rain Malta stuff. I think perhaps, well, I love how I think it's like towards the end they're at that reception ball. I don't even know what event it was anymore. But uh like there's when you're it's kind of the point where I'm in Malta's head. We're in her POV, and for all the first book and like half of this book I hated her guts. And then now she's like thinking about Serwyn and Rain, that they're like trying to get with her, and like it has me thinking like, oh, these stupid boys, like they're so dumb, and they are. Um, but like a lot of her reactions to things were just gold too. Like at one point she sees Rain dancing with Cirilla, and she's literally described to feel, and I quote, the desolation of her soul, just for like seeing the guy that she likes dancing with someone else. And it's just like so dramatic, but so accurate for like a 13-year-old girl and like what she'd be feeling in that instance. I thought that was like a really good piece of writing right there.
Yeah, it was nice. I feel like Malta's grasp of what's going on is finally coming into contact with reality.
Hmm.
Um, she used to make these plans and have these ideas and just be taken advantage of or be wildly off base in like what the effects of her plans would actually be. But now she's starting to actually know what's going on. And as much as it pains her to admit it, doing the family accounts has helped with that.
Yeah, I love how up until now, or for the vast majority of the series so far, she's been looked down upon by her whole family, and now she's in the best position to actually save her family.
Yep, yep.
It's pretty ironic. It's good stuff.
Totally agree. And it's we haven't talked much about Kefria. I feel like she's taken a back seat in this book a little bit because of what
Yeah.
Malta was such a spotlight. But you know, the book ends with her essentially kind of having to go undercover in Bingtown to kind of suss out what's going on, and it's just I don't know. It's interesting to me that she's essentially going to do what she didn't want to do is just kind of take a bigger role in the family, and she just always wanted to stay home and kind of garden and stuff like that. But now and it's kind of the same with Malta too. She's also going to
Yep.
step up, and they're taking charge of the family more, kind of like Ronica was, and where they always
She
both
went to the
didn't want that.
Rainwilds.
Exactly. So yeah, good. Listen, we can't say enough about Malta in this book. I mean, she just completely. She's like Michael Jordan. I mean, she just takes over. It's not even fair. Um,
It's true.
so
Sure.
I did want to talk briefly. I don't want to spend too much time on him, but David Restart. So
Hate him.
Devad.
David Restart. Thank
Devad.
you.
My boy.
So he dies, and I actually did think he was an interesting character. And um, another kind of innocent bystander to grief. I mean, his kids and wife both died from what disease, and you kind of see what that did to him, where he's just kind of a sellout. He he'll
Yep.
sell. He totally goes to the new traders. No one respects him anymore. But it's not like he has a bad heart. I mean, at the end of the day, he always tried to help the Vestrits, and I just think it's an interest. He took slaves, but I think it all stems from, again, this feeling of being vulnerable and having major loss in your life and what that can do to a person, whether it's loss of innocence or actual loss of people. I think when I first read this book, I was like, yeah, good riddance. Glad you took the tumble. But this round through, I kind of felt for him. I was empathetic, and I was impressed by Hobb to have such a write such a character who is kind of a schlub, but just have more depth than that. Having said that, I'm not sad to see him go.
I
So,
mean,
yeah.
the damage was done. I forget the specifics, but didn't he make it so like the attack could go through?
You're led to believe that, I think, right? That he
Yeah,
played a part in that. And
He definitely played a part in it.
I forget how exactly it's reasoned out, but yeah, essentially he made it to where the attack would be successful.
yeah,
Something to do with making it so Costco could get taken. So yeah, I
yeah,
I
mean, I was
I
happy to
think
see him go.
yeah. I think he made it so Costco couldn't get taken at the start. Uh because he he took Cosgo into his home and prevented Cosgo from staying in one of the new traders' homes who would have
Oh
offered
right,
him up to Chelsea.
yeah, yeah, right.
But Davad was so
That ended up being
so
worse for Big Town though.
unaware,
right.
so unaware of the plots against him that he was an inadvertent safe haven.
Yeah, but I think that ended up
Yeah,
being worse for Big Town
I think
somehow.
it might have, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and
But
also he was the
it might
broke.
also have been better
Yep,
in the
he was
long run.
also the
I don't know yet.
broker. Like he was the one trying to sell off Paragon. I mean, I don't think he was really
Which our
redeemable. To be
protagonist wanted.
who
Hmm.
did?
Our protagonist, Amber and
Well, she didn't want him sold off for parts. That's what
Althea and Brashen, yeah. But like he made that sale happen for them when they needed it.
I give that more credit to Ronica to kind of bullying him into saying like, listen, you're going to sell to us at a cheap price because originally he was selling it for parts. He was like, I don't care, this
Yep,
is a
yep.
profit. So I don't I just always fell for him losing. Could you imagine losing your kids and wife? I mean, you'd become a completely different person, and he did for for the worse. Um,
I
I
was
think
getting I was getting ready the whole book for him to betray the Vestrits in a more palpable, more
mhm.
damning fashion, and I was happy that it didn't happen.
I was also happy that didn't happen because I think it makes more sense for him to like stumble through these politics and accidentally have these things go wrong for the Vestrits instead of like being having malicious intent. And I think it's like a more fitting for his character, and it's made for
Yep.
a better read because it's a little unexpected.
That's Hobb to a T. I always feel like it's going to go that way, and it's like, no, this is a totally different direction. Not less fulfilling, but it's like, oh, this is how it's going to go. But yeah, that would be a traditional setup, though. He'd betray the Vestrits in some way, and she just I feel like she never
And all
takes
that
those
bumbling
paths.
was a false flag.
Right.
Is actually super conniving and
Yep.
graceful.
Oh hey, Termingian.
I, I feel like we'll get yelled at if we don't bring her up. We should talk about her. So Etta, she's a fan favorite. She's one of my favorites.
Yes,
Some scenes that
my
really
girl.
stuck out. I mean, she changes uh, completely in this book to
uh,
on her way to Pirate Queen. I think.
Pirate Empress.
Yeah, as should. I mean, just the scene where no one, Kenneth's almost dying or about to die, and they need the health kit or whatever, the
Can
first
I
aid
hope for
kit.
Edda as new satrap?
I like that. I like
Um,
that'd be great.
I want the best for her in every single way. Um, but the way she just immediately susses out that it's Saada who's at least knows where it is, and I don't want to curse on here, but pretty much makes him her, what, and says and cuts him. I mean that it was incredible to see how dynamic she was in those scenes. She's like a whole different person than the first one who she's still
Oh
is
yeah.
adoring Kenneth, but she is like her own person. The whole scene where the town's about to kill Kenneth and revolt against him. I mean, mostly led by Wintro, but definitely right next to him is Edda, ready to like scrap too. And it's like, man, she's a joy every scene she was in.
I
That's
really
why.
like
Go for it.
I really like all of the imagery comparing her to a lioness or a tiger.
It's fitting.
Um. But that's why. that's why Kenneth wanted her to teach Winter how to be a man.
I love
Um,
this.
and she, and she took it like, oh, I gotta teach him knife fighting. And like
Right.
the way the scene's written, it's like we're in Kenneth's head. We know that he wants her to have sex with Wintro, and then it transitions to like Etta approaching Wintro, and like you think that this is about to happen, and then like the reveal that oh she took it as knife fighting the whole time, and then she's to teach Wintro to fight with a dagger. That was great.
Yeah, it's like in the
Also
dark, she's
despicable
coming
on
to him.
Kenneth's part,
Their
Oh,
like
but
mutual training is really cute.
with the reading, yeah, I
the
love the reading
reading.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, it's another thing with
I love
Kenneth
their
There's
relationship in this book.
where it's like it's despicable what he's wants to happen, but in the end, it seems like it's it turns out it's going in a good direction. They're becoming close friends, and but his thought of it is not for that benefit.
He doesn't even
le
care that she knows how to read now. It was sad.
leave it to an author to describe in loving detail the connection that you forge with the person who taught you to read.
Yeah.
Very apt. And I thought it was funny too, where she's like explain like he's like, hey, so did you do the deed or did you know do what I
Yeah.
said? And she's like, yeah, I showed him like knife moves. And he wasn't like super angry. He's like, oh, that's good too. He's like, that'll
It
come in handy.
works. It works.
Yeah, yeah. He's like, yeah, that's that. I don't know. I think she we'll get plenty of her in the third book. She was kind of a revelation for me in this book. Just I wanted more of her. It was kind of like it's good though. It's not. It's one of those things not to have too much of a good thing. I thought she was just in the right amount in the supporting roles for both Wintro and Kenneth, where she just made their arcs, just much better.
Yeah,
Um,
I love her. I think Kenneth came around to her. It was early on in the book, chapter 12. He actually like talks himself out of thinking that Edo's trying to take over the Vivacia, which is a big
Yeah.
step for him. That was big for him.
He still can't believe his good luck.
Yeah, that's how lucky he is.
Neither can I.
Yep.
So we're getting close to an hour. But Sean, you brought up. I want you to start it off. But you talked about the island scene, the other island scene,
Ah,
where
yes.
Wintro frees she who what's her name? She who remembers.
She who remembers.
Yeah, this could.
Yeah.
Yes.
So talk about that scene, what you remember of it, because I remember most of it, I think, but it does play a big part into the ridiculous dragon or serpent storyline.
Yeah, I mean, I love she who remembers. She is my girl, just like Etta, evidently. Um, I I grew to care about the serpents a little bit here, and of course we'll see him next book, and it happens there too. So like looking back on this scene is really nice for me because I'm like, wow, such a big moment here. Wintro freeing her. Um, I thought the abominations were very interesting, like a
Oh
bit of
God, yes.
a world building uh point. Um, I liked how the scene was written because like you really just feel how much Wintro is struggling to do all these things physically, and he's like dehydrated or something. I don't remember.
Yeah.
And then inversely, you have like Kenneth wading through like really deep water on a crutch, like his crutch is sinking down into the sand, and like what I said earlier about how much he can do in one crutch. This scene too. He covers so much ground. He's like running from abominations in the sea, all in one leg. Super impressive. Um, and also, in a important part I should mention is Winter kind of gains some knowledge through his touching of
The
the serpent as well.
toxins.
Yeah, the toxins.
Yeah. I want to know what those toxins are.
Hmm.
They've, there's some sort of connection there. There's some sort of, and I feel like I'm close, but I don't quite understand it fully yet.
Hmm.
Yeah. Read and find out. What did you think of that scene, Kip? Just with the others and the fact.
I've
I assume.
been wanting for She Who Remembers to be found for a while. I feel for these serpents who are lost at sea, quite literally, and I want them to I want dragons to come back. I want dragons back. And I feel like the stones are moving around and the pieces are assembling themselves so that dragons can come back. If only geological events hadn't prevented it in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, I think you're onto something. I think there are definitely pebbles or stepping stones Hobb is leaving for that possibly to happen in the future. I thought, yeah, the whole scene. I thought the most powerful part was kind of the end when Kenneth and Wintrow are trying to get back on the ship, and she kind of, in some sort of respectful moment, just destroys the others, so they kind of saves them, which was
Yeah.
interesting. A serpent and the kind of ship left in
Oh,
awe
yeah.
of what they're seeing. I really. It was mostly because I
Oh.
think Wintrow and what's that?
Now I'm just smiling because then, of course, the whole crew's like, "Oh, can it control the serpent?"
I know.
It's like
His
it's so
myth or
Yep.
his
frustrating.
legend just keeps going.
His myth is legend.
Yeah. But I think it all stemmed from, she who remembers and Wintrow kind of having a mutual
Oh, they have a
understanding
bond.
of,
Yep.
well, they're both prisoners. They were both prisoners. I think Wintrow is still a prisoner of his situation, and she's definitely a literal prisoner. Um,
Yep.
and I think they just saw the suffering between each other. And I thought, I'm still a Wintrow guy, so that was beautiful.
Winter and Malta have another bond now. They're both drowning in memories.
Yeah.
That's an apt point. Yep, yep.
And never mind.
Were you going to bring up the same thing I was going to bring up about Amber? Or
No,
no. Okay, good.
I was in a book 3 stuff. Never mind.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I almost slipped.
Well, because there was something Amber said to maybe it was the first book, but I thought there was something Amber said to Malta before she left that was kind of powerful. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was anymore, but
I
yeah,
remember that.
yeah.
It's like
I don't
after
know if
she was done tripping or before.
yeah. Is there anything else you guys wanted to get to before wrapping up? Any characters you wanted to hit?
I was totally right about the fool.
I guess we can bring that up. Yeah,
I was
so
totally right about the fool.
You were.
there's many moments. The one I highlighted and kept it to when Lavoy was talking to Amber, saying only a fool would want to arm a ship, and Amber says, "I've been called a fool many times, and this won't be the last." And it's like, because so Sean, we didn't really know until book 3, right? I feel like idiots, to be honest with you.
Oh, I feel very dumb. I
I
mean,
know.
that line you just brought up, I remember reading that line too, and I was just like, this doesn't do it for me yet. And like, there's so many things where I just wasn't convinced. Like, I knew it was likely, but I don't know. I was really feeling Starling for so long. I don't know
Oh
why.
wow.
I
Oh,
think
okay.
couldn't tell you why,
I
but
mean, Starling's a fool, sure.
yeah,
I mean, Kip nailed it in the first episode, in the first book. I mean, with the carvings and the prophecy talk.
yeah,
I felt like a fool. I felt like a fool. Like,
Yep.
how did I not put this together? You
Prophecy
know,
talk.
the
Always talking
gender
about the
stuff.
future. Always talking about free will.
hmm So what do you think his goal is, or their goal is here? Like, why did the fool come to Bingtown?
To try and see if they could uh to try and see if they could fix what went wrong with Fitz. To try and see if they could use their gift correctly in the way that it was intended, or if they would always be destined to screw it up and leave people hurt. Uh,
Hmm, I see.
So,
and
I
specifically, I think she was looking for Wintrow.
yeah, well, that was brought
Well,
up,
yeah,
right? She's looking for a
Slave
nine
boy.
fingered slave
Yep.
boy. Yep.
Nine Finger Slave Boy.
and he
Sean,
just did something pretty significant. So
Did you read the Tawny Man trilogy?
yeah, that's
Okay,
what I've read most recently. That was a couple months back, like
okay.
early summer. Love
So I mean
those.
those book answer why she's here.
Yeah, this
Okay.
one. Yeah, yeah.
You think the third book does? I'm not. I guess you could maybe. Yeah. All
I
right.
would say yes, and then more confirmation
Yeah.
later on in the series.
It was interesting to learn that the dragons in the first trilogy were not real dragons, but just like
Yeah.
imitations made by people.
Yeah.
Which, you know what? I'm happy about. I'm happy about.
I'm forgetting the details now, but like something to do with wit and skill.
Right, right.
Um, yeah. Something
Though
like
I
that.
do, I do think that there's possibly there's a possibility that they're one of the three aspects of dragons that need to be brought together to be a full dragon.
hmm These
Possible.
serpents have like poison. They're like, I don't know.
The
It's kind
serpents
kind
have
of an
poison
aspect.
that seems to like melt and reshape things and transfer memories, so
Yeah.
it's a very, very multi-purpose toxin.
Although Verity, we're good for Farseer spoilers technically, right? It's fair game.
Yeah.
I
If
guess
you're
we are.
listening to live ship, I mean, I assume you know Force. Can't
You
imagine
don't. You
people
don't
just
have to
jumping.
though.
You don't have to though, but some people
Yeah,
do.
you
Um,
don't.
but it's they had a similar situation when they were reviving the dragons in Assassin's Quest. Um, they put themselves into the statues,
Yep,
kind of memories. So there's
yep,
that connection there, which I think is intentional as a hint for like figuring out what is going on with these serpents in a through our
yes,
live ship.
yes. In live ships, it says that they aped the natural process. These human mages.
hmm Yeah, there you go.
Um,
Yep.
all right. So we're almost done. I might run. I'm going to run through just quick things I wrote down. Really quick. One thing I noticed: Rain when they were all evacuating from the Chalcedeans, and he would, Kefra didn't want to leave, didn't want, and she wanted to stay or whatever. And he said, how would you? He was telling her, we have to leave. How would you like to see your son Selden, covered in slave tattoos next time you saw him? Which I thought was a little funny
Yeah.
thing because
Yeah.
Yeah,
one son is covered in slave tattoos.
Hmm.
I saw a
that's good.
Reddit post about this. I just want to get your thoughts. What do you think? So a lot of people think Farseer had kind of like I don't want to say like a color scope or kind of like a gray rainy feel, a dull feel. Whereas they
It did.
felt this which I definitely agree with, they think this one's more of a colorful in nature feel, just in the world building and just the I don't know maybe thematically or anything. But do you feel it's more colorful than Farseer, or do you still feel it's like a dull, rainy gray? Does that make
There is
sense? I thought it was
always it
interesting to
always
read.
feels like there's rain on the horizon.
That's true. I'm not arguing that. Yeah, that's pretty much everything I had, other than someone's top comment on Madship. They're like, "Just finished," and they said, "How am I supposed to pretend that Kenneth isn't totally awesome?" And yeah,
You're not. You're not.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
You're
and
supposed
yeah,
to remember his atrocities and remember his motivations, but also not discount his achievements.
and then you're supposed to be like, wow, Robin Hobb's a genius.
Yeah,
yeah.
that is that is
That's
the
where I
natural
land.
conclusion there. Yeah.
I have
I
a quote
definitely,
real quick.
yeah,
This is also chapter 12. It's Wintro telling Kenneth, the wise man takes the shortest path to peace within himself. Acceptance of what is, that is the shortest path, which I think is something he needed to hear and something that a lot of these characters could learn from. Because I feel like a lot of these characters are dealing with their lives changing in a vast way. Um, so yeah, acceptance of what is.
I hate that.
well, I think
Yeah.
You,
I kind of well, Etta said something similar to Wintro. Um, when they had like a quiet moment where she said, "You have to accept what life is right now. You can't keep being stuck in the mindset that you're a priest. You know, you could live with those qualities, but you have to essentially what you just said, live in the moment and what you are." Um, I thought was a nice
That
one.
was
I wish
because
I
of
had the
Kent's
exact quote.
leg.
Right.
like, no. Sometimes you gotta change what is.
Yeah, I don't think it's a completely blanket statement that's always true, but I thought it was
Yeah,
a good piece of advice in that moment and probably good for some of these characters.
sure. I mean, Kyle could use it a lot. Uh, because Kyle refuses to accept a whole bunch of things that are reality, but
Yeah.
he just goes with what his internal cultural norms say and disregards everything that contradicts it.
So before we go, Kip, do you have any predictions? Any blanket predictions? Anything you think the story's going to go?
Predictions. Malta's newly freed dragon is about to go F some S up. And possibly disrupting Althea, and possibly giving Paragon a panic attack, and possibly our favorite schizophrenic ship will. Actually, I can't decide if Paragon is a better allegory for schizophrenia or dissociative identity disorder. But our favorite ship with one of those conditions is going to get very frightened by some serpents.
Hmm. I like it.
I think you're gonna. I think you're not too far off. I think she has to play some part. It's like Chekhov's gun, Chekhov's dragon. You can't just release a dragon and not.
And I think Amber is going to restore his sight somehow.
I love that
Or
prediction.
Just
it's
carve
going to
eyes
or
on,
it's or
easy.
it's going to turn out that his eyes aren't required for sight.
Hmm.
Ooh, wow! Look at you.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, I think that does it. I think we hit a lot of stuff. I mean, this book was packed. I mean, I
Yeah.
literally lost track of everything that happened. So yeah, we'll get on. Kip has to start. Ship of Destiny. Who that ship is about? Who that book is about? It's up to you to decide, Kip. But
Okay.
we'll return next time when you've finished. And man, you're just gonna have so much to say. I'm not even. I think
It's gonna be fun.
yeah, I can't
Fun.
wait. So, thank you guys for joining me. Thank you, Craig, for letting us do this. Horizon Brave for setting this up, and for Kyptan and Sean and myself. We will see you next time.
See you
See
next time.
ya.
Bye.